All right, there you're still watching Business Nigeria live from our studios here in Atlantic, Victoria Island. Well, let's get to our next topic of discussion this afternoon. The federal government is expected to kick off its tax reforms aimed at simplifying Nigeria's tax systems in July. Well, that's according to Mr. Taiwo Edele, who is the head of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. The tax chief stated that the legislation is to be passed this quarter, with further preparations for implementation to follow in the coming months. The reforms are intended to centralize and simplify tax collection, including a reduction of more than 60 separate taxes and levies to 6. Nigeria is aiming to harmonize its complex tax systems with a new bill that is aimed at unburdening multiple taxation and ensuring exemptions for low-income earners. But the reforms has been greeted with disparaging debates, with many northern leaders calling for its withdrawal, while other stakeholders are urging the federal government to, of course, engage in wider consultation. Just last week, the Nigerian Governors Forum gave their barkings to the bill while sharing their views on the VAT sharing formula. Let's get another perspective to this discussion. And joining me is Engineer Abdullahi Hashim. He is an alumnus of the prestigious Harvard University, a prominent member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Managing Director, Cubicle Vetex. Thank you for joining the program. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, sir.
I think we should start with the series of consultations. And finally, we see that the governors have also put a nod to this proposed tax amendment bill. First, what do you make of it, your understanding? I'm sure you've read through this document. Let's get your perspective with regards to it.
Yeah, well, this is a very laudable approach, actually, and it is not the first experience globally. Even if you look at the Organization of the Economic and Cooperation Development, which has a member of 38 members, they are also having similar transformation. So if you look at Singapore in 2023 too, they also established a system similar to that of Nigeria. So it is not something that is unique to Nigeria or peculiar to Nigeria. It is something that requires, update regularly. Previously, we've been using an archaic or old system of tax, but now, because of the pressure, globalization, technology, and other stuff, so all these things compound together that necessitate the need for upgrade of the tax system. So I think it's a brilliant concept that Mr. President has brought this kind of thing within a particular time. And I appreciate him of his leadership because he allowed a climate of participation, which is a very good procedure, especially when Harvard also mentioned that when you have a policy and there is no problem of inviting foreign policy, but contextualization is a key. Yes, what does contextualization mean now? You have to bring everything that has to do with the atmosphere of the implementing environment of that bill, in terms of culture, in terms of political history, in terms of economy, in terms of so many factors. So now he created a participatory environment, which is a good thing, which he is creating a way of contextualizing this bill, which is the best reform ever globally. So, and Mr. President's inclusivity in leadership is a well-recommended one, not because of anything, but because Mr. President valued diverse perspective of public. And these are the kind of things we need in leadership. So when policies are brought to Nigeria and are copied shamelessly, thereby you will see what we call implementation gap. This implementation gap, it will create a scenario whereby people will have difficulty in implementation of that particular policy. But when it is contextualized within the reality of local content, within the reality of local realities, so this is where you will see a very laudable and effective governance. And Mr. President, by so doing, he is crystallizing the public trust. And trust, and he is also leaving a legacy. So, but trust and legacy, let me tell you, is the cornerstone for effective governance. And this is what we want in particular leadership like this.
Interesting way to start that. The bone of contention, well, let's talk about the VAT sharing formula, which, of course, has now been sorted out. It now stands. It's been, we've gotten clarity, of course, around that with the Governors Forum accepting to this. What do you also make of that sharing formula before we move into other issues that we have to talk about today?
Well, actually, what I observe is that I will appreciate the Governors Forum at the beginning, because they have realized that Mr. President is heading them to the right way. That was why they come together and accept this particular bill processes. But another thing is that consensus is also needed. Consensus is also needed. It's very pivotal here, not because of anything, but because these people are representative of their population within their respective states. So whatever they have at a larger spectrum from the federal government, they will have to yarn their people aspiration. That was why they came together and they vent out their perspective towards this reform processes. So from there, you will see they are given a particular perspective of different diverse populations. And this is what I call inclusivity in leadership. And it's a very pivotal, actually. But what they did, actually, at the end of the day, they will meet at an equilibrium point, where this equilibrium point will lead us to development and will lead us to a very long-time measurable success. That is my perspective, actually.
Interesting stuff. Let's now look at other issues. Of course, you're an engineer, and I'd like to take you to that route. Let's look at refineries. We've seen what has happened lately. First, it was Dangote Refinery coming on stream. After that, Port Harcourt Refinery, a section of it came on stream. Now Warri Refinery has joined that stream. Now, and we are hearing that Kaduna and all of that will come on stream very shortly. You're, like I said earlier, an engineer. What do you make of this? And how do you see that impacting particularly the downstream sector of the oil and gas industry following the deregulation of that segment of the oil and gas sector?
Well, this is a wonderful question, actually. For the nation, previously, you know, past leadership, they don't even have this confidence. They don't even believe that this particular refineries will work. But this particular administration, within a minute time, they have revived almost more than 4 or more than 3 refineries. And Kaduna is now gearing up.
Yes.
Even out of this now, from there are private sector refineries that are gearing up within his leadership. Look at Dangote, look at Bua Refinery. You know, Bua Refinery is nearly completion stage. So it's a laudable, you know, approach that this leadership is showing. That is why you hear people are keeping quiet, because they saw a very, very, very formidable leadership here. So people are even believing in the system. Why? If you see other people are investing, look at Alhaji Indimi. He is investing more than $300 million into the oil sector. So why are you going to use your energy and money to invest on something? Because you believe in it. So he believes in the leadership of Mr. President. So another private sector. So I think it's something worth celebrating, that we have refineries are gearing up. And if you look at queues now, have you ever seen queues? There is no queue now. So fuel queues are not there any longer. So we have a peaceful Nigeria, and from now to June, you will see so many productive progression in the leadership and the policies.
Interesting stuff. But many will tell you that, and Nigerians will tell you that, well, we want this to impact pricing, which is something that is very important. We saw what happened in December, but now the price of crude has gone up. We've seen what is happening. My first discussion was around the Israel-Gaza war and what it means for the oil and gas industry and, of course, the entire global chain. So if this happens and crude continues to go up, you know that one way or the other we'll pay more for at the pump. What do you make of that impact also, or the impact of crude oil prices on our refined products? Do you think there's any way that we could manage this, and of course, so that we don't continue to have high inflation in our country?
The global also practices. The issue of fluctuation of prices depends on the energy, the time, and the factors on ground. Now, if you look at the energy history, exploration began, I think, almost 117 years back, in 1908, I suppose, with MBC, Nigerian Bitumen Corporation. They began exploration in Nigeria. They conducted their first exploration in 1908, but it was halted by World War I. Then later, in 1920, the exploration continued with, when they realized they could not get a volume of commercial quantity. Then in 1937, the exploration continues with British Petroleum as well as consortium with British Petroleum, which they got crude oil in high yield. Was it in 1958 or 1956, thereabout, in Olebri in Bayelsa? So therefore, this is a particular process that is giving birth to a particular effort that is giving birth to price fluctuation of petroleum. But I think people have begun to consolidate their trust with this government, and they will keep on seeing positive changes within time. And all this hullabaloo that you are seeing with around the fluctuation of prices will come down, because now Consumer Protection Council will sit up, and other all relevant agency will come together and bring their best to the successful leadership of this particular government.
But you will agree with me that there is need to increase production. That's talking about crude production. Just this week, the president met with the Ogoni leaders, and all is in efforts to try to ramp up production. What do you also make of that, and how do you think, as an engineer, we can address this issue of crude theft, which everyone talks about and is eating deep into the fabric of Nigeria's economy? Not at this time where our budget is so high and we need to fund it.
Yeah, I think what Mr. President is looking at is the leakages. All the leakages where they will bring a shortage of petroleum. But if you look at, the consumption of fuel, based on the available report, 64.14 million liters is the consumption daily. But I think Nigerian midstream, downstream petroleum regulatory agency also made about 66 point something. Well, the difference of 2 million. But what we are saying is that Mr. President is like copying the leakages in terms of smuggling. You see, all these policies we are doing with the energy we are putting, the byproduct is the petroleum. And in the end, with all the effort, we now smuggle almost 15 point something million liters of petroleum to the neighboring countries. It's not good. So I think it's a perfect approach. Like all the leakages have to be have to be taken care of, so that the internal consumption will going to be perfectly accommodating. Yes, sir.
Indeed. Our conversation is still very, very, very interesting, because I want to ask you, you're again in the engineering space, and many will say local content remains very important. How well, in your understanding, do you see do you see government taking advantage, of course, you taking advantage of professionals in your engineering space, in other spaces as we move on? What's your assessment of governments taking the advantage of local content to, boost the economy and, of course, increase productivity?
It's a good one, when you talk about local realities. Whatever policy you will bring into a particular environment,
yes,
you need to stitch that environment and the atmosphere around it,
yes,
to suit the realities of what you bring into it. So the local content we have now in Nigeria, we are having cultural norms and other stuff like that. Then we also have economic conditions. After economic conditions, we also have political history. After political history, we also have the norms, local norms, the values for local norms. So all these kind of things have to be contextualized within a particular policy before we realize a very successful and effective policy making. So, but local content plays a pivotal role in establishment of sustainable policy making.
All right, finally, before I let you go, you know of the economic reforms on the ground. One of it is where we started our conversation around the tax laws and all of that. But there are other reforms which, of course, deregulation, liberalization of the foreign exchange market, which the president, of course, and other policymakers have said has come to stay. What is your outlook for Nigeria's economy in the year 2025? Considering where we are, a lot of projections and reprojections from the World Bank, from the IMF. We've had all of that. But what do you make of it in your own understanding?
Yeah, my own understanding, there is hope and there is a great light at the end of the tunnel. So people are seeing it with partnership and collaboration, and with this kind of leadership style that I'm seeing, I don't think Nigeria will going to face more challenges. So things will unravel with time, definitely. But as you look at the global spectrum itself, yes, it is also, everywhere is having challenge here and there, here and there. So everybody is sitting up to meet up the global standard, you know, and the global operating standard in every aspect of life. Because we are one now globally. We are one now globally. So whatever we are doing, we are going together and we are doing it according to global standard. So when we apply similar such kind of standard, I think the whole world will, and collaborative leadership as it were, and inclusivity, we will see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Engineer Abdullahi Hashim, it's your first time on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Alumnus of prestigious Harvard University, member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Managing Director, Corbical Vetex Solutions Limited. Thank you so much and hope to see you again. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I remain appreciative.
All right then. All right, well, let's take a break, and when we come back, Effiong Gekop is standing by live from the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange to bring us up to speed with a trading pattern around the exchange for today. A lot of beautiful figures we are seeing. Effiong, I think Effiong is ready. Effiong, are you there? All right, let's take that break, and when we come back, we would have Effiong Gekop. Don't go away.